What happens when one of Hollywood's most unpredictable actors meets daytime television's most controversial host? You're about to witness a clash that nobody saw coming, a heated exchange that escalated so quickly it left the entire studio in stunned silence. Before we dive into this explosive confrontation, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really triggered this massive blowout. The tension was palpable from the moment Nicolas Cage walked onto the View set. He was there to promote his latest film, a passion project about independent filmmaking that had taken him years to bring to the screen. The other hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and Alyssa Farah Griffin, seemed genuinely interested in hearing about his creative process. But Joy Behar had something else entirely on her mind. "So, Nicolas," Joy began with that signature smirk of hers, "let's talk about your spending habits. I mean, we've all heard the stories about the dinosaur skulls, the pyramid tomb, the private island. Don't you think it's a bit irresponsible to blow through a fortune like that?" The question hit like a sledgehammer. This wasn't in the pre-interview notes. Nicolas shifted in his seat, his jaw tightening slightly. "Well, Joy, I think we're here to discuss my film, not my personal financial decisions from years past." "Oh, but it's all connected, isn't it?" Joy pressed on, clearly enjoying the uncomfortable moment she'd created. "I mean, how can audiences trust an actor who can't even manage his own money? You had to sell your comic book collection, your cars, even your homes. That's not exactly the behavior of someone who makes good choices." The studio audience fell silent. Even Whoopi looked uncomfortable, glancing between Joy and Nicolas with concern. But Joy wasn't done. She leaned forward, her voice dripping with condescension. "And let's not forget about all those straight-to-video movies you've been churning out. Some people are calling it the Nicolas Cage money grab. Are you just taking any role that pays the bills now?" Nicolas took a deep breath, his hands clasping together on his lap. When he spoke, his voice was measured, but you could hear the frustration building beneath the surface. "Joy, with all due respect, you're making assumptions about my career choices without understanding the context. Every role I take, whether it's for a major studio or an independent production, is a conscious, artistic decision." "Artistic decision?" Joy laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Come on, Nicolas, nobody believes that. You made National Treasure. Then you made Season of the Witch. That's not art, that's desperation." Sarah Haynes tried to intervene. "Maybe we could talk about the new film, which sounds really interesting." But Joy cut her off with a wave of her hand. No. I think this is important. Our viewers deserve honesty. Nicolas, you've become a meme. People don't take you seriously anymore. They watch your movies to laugh at you, not with you. How does that feel?" The camera captured the exact moment something shifted in Nicolas Cage's expression. His eyes narrowed, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made everyone in the studio pay attention. "You know what, Joy? I've been doing this for over 40 years. I've worked with some of the greatest directors of our time. I've won an Academy Award. I've created characters that people still quote decades later. But more importantly, I've never stopped taking risks. I've never played it safe, and I've never let someone else's narrow definition of success dictate my choices." Joy rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, please. Don't give me the misunderstood artist routine. You bought a pyramid for your grave." "A pyramid? That's not taking risks, that's being ridiculous. At least I'm not making a career out of tearing down other people on national television." Nicolas shot back, his composure finally cracking slightly. "At least when I take a risk, it's in service of something creative, not just cheap shots for applause." The tension in the room was electric. Whoopi was frantically shuffling her cards, clearly trying to figure out how to steer the conversation back to safer ground. But Joy Behar was just getting warmed up. "Cheap shots?" she repeated, her voice rising. "I'm asking legitimate questions that every entertainment journalist in America has been asking. The only difference is they're too polite to say it to your face. I'm doing you a favor by being honest." Nicolas leaned back in his chair, a sardonic smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Honest? Is that what we're calling this? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're trying to humiliate a guest who came here in good faith to talk about his work." I'm trying to have a real conversation, Joy insisted, but her tone suggested otherwise. Not some fake Hollywood fluff piece where we pretend everything is wonderful. Your fans deserve better than that. My fans, Nicholas said slowly, emphasizing each word, appreciate authenticity. They understand that an actor's job is to disappear into different roles, to explore the human condition through character. They don't need someone explaining to them what they should think about my work. Joy's laugh was sharp and cutting. Authenticity? You think making Ghost Rider was authentic? You think cashing those paychecks for movies nobody remembers was authentic? That's when the conversation took a turn that nobody, not even the producers watching from the control room, could have anticipated. Nicolas Cage stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the sudden silence of the studio. The moment Nicolas Cage rose from his chair, you could feel the entire energy of the studio shift. This wasn't just an uncomfortable interview anymore. This was about to become television history. Joy Behar, however, seemed completely oblivious to the gravity of what she had just unleashed. "Oh, what are you doing now?" Joy asked with mock surprise, gesturing dramatically at Nicholas. "Are you going to storm off? Is this going to be another one of your legendary meltdowns?" Nicholas turned to face her directly, his voice dropping to an almost whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout could have. "Legendary meltdowns? You mean the times when I've been passionate about my craft? When I've refused to give cookie-cutter answers to lazy questions? I mean the times when you've lost control." Joy fired back, clearly thinking she had the upper hand. "Like that time you screamed at that poor interviewer about method acting. Or when you went on that rant about how you're not crazy, you're just misunderstood. Face it, Nicholas. You've become a caricature of yourself." The other hosts were exchanging worried glances. Whoopi finally tried to step in. "Okay, let's take a breath here and maybe talk about the new project." But Nicholas held up a hand, his eyes never leaving Joy's face. "No, Whoopi. I think Joy has something she wants to get off her chest. Please, Joy, continue. Tell me more about how I've become a caricature." There was something dangerous in his tone now, a quiet intensity that made even Joy pause for a moment. But she had gone too far to back down now. "Well, since you asked," she said, leaning back in her chair with false confidence, "let's talk about your acting choices. The weird voices, the over-the-top expressions, the way you seem to think every role requires you to act like you're having some kind of breakdown. It's not method acting, Nicholas, it's just weird." "Weird," Nicholas repeated slowly, nodding as if considering this deeply. "You know what's weird, Joy? Sitting across from someone whose entire career is built on mean-spirited commentary and having them lecture me about artistic choices. You've never created anything. You've never put yourself out there creatively. You've never taken a risk that might result in failure or criticism." Joy's face flushed red. "Excuse me? I've been in this business longer than you have. I've interviewed presidents, world leaders, major celebrities. I don't need to create anything to recognize when someone is making a fool of themselves." "And there it is," Nicholas said, his voice rising for the first time. "Making a fool of myself. That's what this is really about, isn't it? You can't stand the fact that I'm willing to look foolish in service of a character, that I'm willing to fail spectacularly rather than play it safe like everyone else in this town." Sarah Haynes tried once more to defuse the situation. "Nicholas, maybe we could discuss your approach to character development in the new film." But Joy cut her off again, clearly enjoying the confrontation too much to let it go. "Oh no, Sarah, this is getting good. Nicholas here is about to explain to us how buying dinosaur bones and making terrible movies is actually high art." That was the moment when Nicolas Cage's famous composure finally snapped completely. His voice exploded across the studio with an intensity that made everyone jump. "You want to know about terrible? Terrible is sitting in judgment of artists, when your biggest contribution to entertainment is spreading gossip and negativity. Terrible is using your platform to tear people down instead of building them up. Terrible is thinking that cynicism and cruelty somehow make you edgy or relevant." Joy tried to interrupt, but Nicholas was on a roll now, years of frustrated professionalism finally pouring out. "You want to talk about my purchases? Fine. I bought things that inspired me, things that connected me to history and art and the mysteries of human existence. What do you do with your money, Joy? What feeds your soul? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like the only thing that feeds your soul is making other people feel small. How dare you? Joy shot back, her own composure cracking now. I don't have to sit here and listen to this from someone who thinks he's some kind of misunderstood genius. You're not Marlon Brando, Nicholas. You're not even Johnny Depp. You're just a guy who got lucky early in his career and has been coasting on that luck ever since. The studio had gone completely silent except for the low hum of the cameras. Even the crew members had stopped what they were doing to watch this unprecedented meltdown unfold in real time. Nicholas laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. Coasting? You think 40 years of consistently working, of constantly challenging myself with new roles and new directors, is coasting? You think choosing independent films over big studio paychecks is coasting? I think you're delusional, Joy said flatly. I think you've surrounded yourself with men who tell you what you want to hear, and you've lost touch with reality. Your recent movies aren't art, they're embarrassing. And the fact that you can't see that just proves my point. Nicholas took a step closer to Joy's chair, his voice dropping back to that dangerous whisper. You know what's embarrassing, Joy? Embarrassing is being so miserable with your own life that you have to spend every day trying to drag successful people down to your level. Embarrassing is thinking that being mean makes you interesting. Successful? Joy practically shrieked. You filed for bankruptcy? You had to sell everything you owned. That's not success, that's failure. And I came back from it, Nicholas replied coldly. I worked harder. I took roles that maybe weren't glamorous, but I rebuilt my life and my career through pure determination. What have you ever had to come back from, Joy? What challenge have you ever faced that required you to dig deep and find strength you didn't know you had? Joy was speechless for the first time in the entire interview, her mouth opening and closing without any sound coming out. But Nicholas wasn't finished with her yet. You sit here every day in your comfortable chair, with your comfortable salary, taking comfortable shots at people who actually take risks. And you think that makes you important. But you're not important, Joy. You're just loud. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Whoopi, who had seen everything in her decades of television, looked stunned by the brutality of what had just unfolded. But Joy Behar, true to form, couldn't leave well enough alone. Joy Behar's face had turned an alarming shade of red, and when she finally found her voice again, it came out as a venomous hiss that cut through the studio's silence like a knife. You think you can come on my show and insult me? She snarled, rising from her own chair now. You think because you won an Oscar 30 years ago, that gives you the right to talk to me like that? I've been asking tough questions since before you knew how to act, and I'll be asking them long after Hollywood forgets you exist. Nicholas shook his head slowly, a look of genuine sadness replacing the anger in his eyes. This isn't about tough questions, Joy. This has never been about tough questions. This is about you needing to feel superior to your guests, needing to be the star of your own show instead of letting the actual stars shine. Oh, please, Joy spat back. Don't try to psychoanalyze me. You're the one who needs therapy. You're the one who thinks buying a pyramid makes you interesting. You're the one who can't tell the difference between being an artist and being a lunatic. That word, lunatic, hung in the air like a slap. The other hosts looked mortified. Whoopi actually gasped audibly. Even the camera operators seemed to shift uncomfortably behind their equipment. Nicholas stood perfectly still for a long moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was quiet but filled with a dignity that made Joy's venom seem even more petty by comparison. A lunatic, he repeated softly. You know, Joy. In all my years in this business, through all the critics and all the difficult interviews, and all the people who didn't understand my choices, no one has ever been quite so cruel as you're being right now. And the saddest part is, you seem proud of it. Joy crossed her arms defiantly. I'm proud of asking real questions instead of kissing up to celebrities who think they're above criticism. If that makes me cruel, then so be it. No, Nicholas said, his voice gaining strength. What makes you cruel is that you're not asking questions at all. You're just attacking. There's a difference between journalism and bullying, and you crossed that line the moment I sat down. Alyssa Farah Griffin finally found her voice. Maybe we should take a commercial break and reset. But Joy wasn't having it. She turned on Alyssa with the same venom she'd been directing at Nicholas. Don't you dare try to save this interview. This is exactly what our viewers want to see. Real talk. Not some sanitized publicity nonsense. Real talk? Nicholas laughed bitterly. You want real talk? Here's some real talk for you, Joy. Your show used to mean something. It used to be a place where women could have intelligent conversations about important issues. But you've turned it into a circus where the only entertainment value comes from watching you be needlessly cruel to people who can't fight back. Can't fight back? Joy's voice pitched higher. You seem to be fighting back just fine. In fact, you seem to be having one of your famous meltdowns right here on live television. This isn't a meltdown, Nicholas said calmly. This is me finally saying what everyone in this industry has been thinking for years, but has been too polite to say to your face. You're a bully, Joy. A professional bully who hides behind the pretense of asking tough questions. Joy's mouth fell open in shock. For the first time in the entire confrontation, she seemed genuinely speechless. But Nicholas wasn't done. You want to know about my career choices? Fine. I choose roles that challenge me, that scare me, that might fail spectacularly because that's what art is about. Taking risks. Pushing boundaries. You choose to sit in this chair every day and take the safe route of tearing down people who are actually trying to create something meaningful. I create meaningful conversation, Joy protested weakly. No, Nicholas said firmly. You create conflict for ratings. There's nothing meaningful about what just happened here. You ambushed me with personal attacks that had nothing to do with the project I came here to discuss, and you did it because you thought it would make good television. Well, congratulations, Joy. You got your good television. He turned to address the camera directly, his voice steady and controlled despite everything that had just transpired. To anyone watching this who might be struggling with their own creative dreams, who might be afraid to take risks because someone might criticize them, let me tell you something. Don't let people like this stop you. Don't let fear of being called weird or crazy or a failure keep you from pursuing what you're passionate about. Joy tried to interrupt. Don't you dare turn this into some inspirational speech. But Nicholas held up his hand without even looking at her. The world needs artists who are willing to fail, who are willing to be ridiculed, who are willing to be misunderstood. Because that's where real art comes from. Not from playing it safe, not from following formulas, but from being brave enough to be authentic even when people don't understand. He finally turned back to Joy, and his voice was filled with a quiet disappointment that was somehow more devastating than all his anger had been. I came here today to talk about a film that means everything to me, a project that took years of my life and represents everything I believe about the power of independent storytelling. Instead, I got ambushed by someone who thinks cruelty is the same thing as honesty. I feel sorry for you, Joy. I really do. Because you could have been part of something meaningful today, and instead you chose to be part of something ugly. With that, Nicolas Cage walked toward the edge of the set, his microphone still clipped to his jacket. The entire studio watched in stunned silence as he paused at the edge of the stage and turned back one final time. Good luck with your show, he said quietly. I hope someday you figure out the difference between being tough and being cruel. And then he was gone, leaving Joy Behar sitting alone at the table, her face a mask of shock and embarrassment, while the other hosts stared at their hands, and the studio audience sat in complete, uncomfortable silence. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the aftermath, as Whoopi Goldberg tried desperately to salvage what was left of the show, and Joy Behar realized that for once in her career, she had pushed someone too far and lost completely. What did you think of that explosive confrontation? Was Nicolas Cage justified in walking off? Or did Joy Behar have a point about holding celebrities accountable? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more incredible moments like this that you won't see anywhere else.